The Eminence and Shadows back and better than ever, shipped in full gear, starting off with a brand new setting. We have high stakes, new additional characters, new waifus to will on in a mobile gacha game, and some spicy Yuri momentum to top it off. Sid and the Shadow Garden gang are back and have been hilarious as ever. The entire meeting at the start of episode 1 was so silly despite discussing serious matters. Everyone's always on a different wavelength. I love how Sid was trying to make some cool badass remark about the Lawless city, and everyone immediately just jumps to the conclusion that someone smells like shit. That might have been the funniest part of the episode. We start off being given a general overview of the Lawless city, which was mentioned once back in season 1, giving us an idea of what to expect from this place. One thing we get to immediately know is that it seems to be mostly ruled by vampires. Quentin and Goldie Armor Guy getting their asses handed to them, being used to introduce this one dude who tried to challenge the Blood Queen, but ended up getting rolled in the process. Giving the audience an idea of how strong and how much of a threat this quote-unquote Blood Queen could potentially be, which I'm kind of wondering how that even happened if she's supposed to be dead. Another funny moment I want to bring up is when random muggers were trying to steal Sid's wallet, but he stole it back along with some extra interest on it. Rob from everyone who robs from him, truly a factor of shadow wisdom. Oh right, did I mention? The moon is red, the frenzy has begun. Run if you value your life. We don't have much time left. That's right, the red moon is here and the vampires and ghouls have awakened. As Sid is about to be quote-unquote attacked by ghouls, we meet vampire hunter Mary, who just comes in out of nowhere and drops the hardest fucking bars. Which leads up to the best thing to come out of this arc. Now, I've kept on bringing up funny moments and Sid being a goofball throughout the episode, but let's be real here. The best moment in this entire episode and arc even is Sid running around stealing Mary's bars. I just love how out of all things this became the running gag for this arc, and this is just perfect for Shadow so he could increase his Chunin view stats. Lastly, to wrap up episode's 1 review, Claire and Mary team up to go to the Crimson Tower and we get a bit of lore regarding the vampire schemes. Blood Queen Elizabeth has been in slumber for a millennia, and with the red moon out and a catalyst offered as a sacrifice, she will be revived and probably lay waste to the city. We were also introduced to Yukime this episode, and I'm really excited to see more of her character because I've read the manga a while back and all I'm gonna say is she's a great character in the next arc. Episode 2 gives us a lot more explanations and added depth to characters like Mary, generally just learning some important things. First, that one white-haired guy that clapped Quentin and Goldie was clapped not by the Blood Queen but by Crimson. We get a little glimpse of his ability, but sadly that's short-lived considering the end of this episode. Secondly, we learn that Mary might actually be a vampire. Beta brought up a quote-unquote haven, plus her mentioning a 1,000-year-old rumor when referring to Mary, as well as several other clues dropped. It was nice to see that there's more that meets the eye than her just simply being the vampire hunter. A little later, Claire and Mary encountered Juggernaut and Claire straight up gets the shit punched out of her, following with Mary getting rolled. Which made me kinda curious as to how an actual fight with Sid versus Juggernaut would play out. Of course we know who wins, but still. Our speculations of Mary being a potential vampire come true right as Claire attempts to heal her. But first, gotta replay the best scene of the episode. I never expected this to become the Eminence in Yuri, but honestly I kinda ship them. I can kinda see it. Too bad for Claire though, she probably wanted Sid to be her first kiss. But that's besides the point. Moving on, we get an even bigger lore dump regarding the Blood Queen Elizabeth's backstory and the aforementioned haven. As you would expect, it follows the classic vampire tropes of them hunting humans and drinking their blood during the golden age. As time went on, eventually the humans would counterattack, which leads to the point where at one point they lived among humans. The vampires were able to adapt to daylight and rid themselves of their thirst for human blood, except this wasn't the case for Elizabeth. I'm guessing it's because she's a progenitor vampire and the others are just humans turned into vampires. Nevertheless, she still wanted to coexist with the humans despite her having no immunity. At least for me, it's something you rarely see for vampires or demon rulers, particularly in old times. Also, just want to point out my goat Hayami Sayori voicing Elizabeth, perfect casting choice, 10 out of 10. So once the red moon came in, she couldn't control her urges anymore and Crimson used it to his advantage to get her to rampage against the city, ultimately leading Elizabeth to end it all herself. It was a brief backstory and not that deep, but I still love that depth they added to her character, trying to make her unique. I don't feel like we've ever really had much of that in Eminence in terms of writing, at least throughout the first season. It was a good fresh concept to have that gives you a vast appreciation for these characters despite only briefly knowing them. Lastly, Sid, this fucking madman. this absolute goofer. Broke the unspoken anime rule. Crimson was yapping and having a whole ass monologue, and bro just drops in and atomics his ass, no questions asked. Didn't even say the line, which was kind of a missed opportunity. And here my ass was thinking he was actually going to fight Crimson rather than him getting rolled immediately. But hey, on the bright side, Elizabeth has survived. A lot of things occurred throughout this episode, but most important is Elizabeth awakening. Veda and the gang pull up to fight Elizabeth in Shadow's stead, and it's been pretty one-sided to say the least. My speculations earlier in the video about her strength were pretty on point. Elizabeth is just absolutely fucking broken. She even one-shots Juggernaut and even breaks his leg without lifting a finger. Kinda surprisingly, Elizabeth is able to control possessed blood as shown with the Shadow Garden gang and Claire's possession starting to spread throughout their body. If I remember correctly, Beta mentioned back in episode 2 that vampires and the demons or whatever have the same ancestor, so they're kinda one of a kind with each other. Speaking of Claire's possession spreading, unexpectedly Aurora appears again, giving us a bit of info regarding Claire's situation. Since she now has both possessed and vampire blood in her, both the possession and vampire blood are trying to adapt into Claire's body, but they're not compatible, I guess. Even worse being Claire can't control them, so if her blood kept going berserk, it seems like she would have become fully mutilated like the possessed ones. Shortly after that exposition, Aurora momentarily takes over Claire's body, and she was holding her own pretty well against Elizabeth. The fight was pretty cool, but what was crazy though, and I would have actually lost my shit if she actually pulled it off. She was about to hit the atomic. I still can't believe she was about to do it. Highlight moment of the episode right there. Unfortunately, she didn't because the author wouldn't go all the way and let someone steal Sid's move, so the excuse made up was Claire was too weak for her body to handle that power. Anyway, Sid finally comes back and obviously goes toe to toe with Elizabeth. Of course, we're back to the goofiness. Sid's worried about all his gold getting destroyed, and as usual, Beta misinterprets it as him wanting to protect her. As I've said earlier, they always find a way to make a serious moment become silly. Lastly, we get to the climax of the battle. The final Big Bang attack, the almighty finisher. That's right, Sid pulls out an atomic, but this time it's a different variation again. Recovery atomic. Now rather than blasting the place to smithereens, he uses this one to turn everything back to normal. And honestly, this arc was shorter than I expected. I wasn't thinking it would be the entire season, but maybe the first half of the season at most. Overall, it was a fantastic arc, and I'm hoping we get to eventually see more of Elizabeth and Mary again. Now lastly, before wrapping up this review, the post-credit scene really got me hyped as I know what's coming in the next episode. We finally made it to one of the top best arcs of Eminence. If you're anime only, just skip this part. John Smith is finally here, and he and Yukime are about to get it down while Sid just 2x Shadow Garden with his 2 different personas. Either way, I'm really excited to see what's coming in the next episode.